when you say humble, it doesn't mean chas v'shalom that the person is lying to himself or other people. You can't be dishonest and say it's an expression of a humble expression of humbleness. So we can't say that Rabbi knew the truth, who he was, but he's a tzaddik, but he says, despite that, he calls himself a Beinoni because he's a humble person. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all, because a tzaddik is a tzaddik, and he's distant from many other Avedas, and he's distant from saying, expressing himself in a dishonest manner. After loy pasik pum l'chein hayirabba machzik ba'atzmei. Oh, you're looking for the place on the inside the Tanya on the sheets. Yeah, l'chein hayirabba machzik ba'atzmei b'eni. I'm sorry, I didn't. I thought you had it. I'm sorry that I.
Yeah, good, got it.
I'm sorry, I didn't pay attention. You didn't have it. Yeah, okay. So we were saying that. So how could he call himself a Beinoni? And so getting back to what we were saying before, that as much as a tzaddik is distant from any sin, he's distant from chas v'shalom saying something dishonest. Chas v'shalom, which is heipach ha'emes, contrary to the truth.
You got to know who you are.
What?
You got to know.
You're right. At least you wouldn't verbally say it in a way that it's not the case. In other words, because that's fringing an aveda, a clear aveda. You can't be dvashaka tirchak. That's the distance from saying anything which is not true. Dishonesty. It's not it's not certainly not aligned with Torah. So why do you consider himself a Beinoni? So now, based on the explanation of the Alter Rebbe, that there's certain times, as for example, if the Beinoni would daven a whole day, you would never be able to differentiate him and a tzaddik. Based on what we said, we don't have to elaborate or repeat in detail or in length the bonus of tefillah in the life of the Beinoni. It's because the experience of, we call it a bonus because the Beinoni is somebody that his nefesh bahamis is intact, which means the core of his animal soul, his heart, his inclination, his drive to animalistic matters are completely in full tact. Nonetheless, he never allows these animalistic drives to be implemented, not in thought, not in speech, and not in action. In the time of davening, the Beinoni's heart is completely focused and in expression to Hashem. That is the experience of davening in the life of the Beinoni. That his heart is right now connected, or he's connected to Hashem on a heart level. Once he's connected to Hashem on a heart level, we said you can't have the heart in two different and opposite directions. In other words, in the moments when he davens, the time when he davens, he's very similar to the tzaddik. That was the difference of the tzaddik and the Beinoni. The tzaddik's heart is on a constant basis to Hashem. The Beinoni not so. But if the Beinoni is davening, that his heart is completely transformed and stands in his full expression, and there was the godly dimension, or the lev of the core of the nefesh l'kis, is completely dominant of the core of the nefesh bahamis, which means his heart is completely in expression to Hashem. So that is the kind of a definition of the tzaddik. The only thing is, why isn't he a tzaddik? Because after davening, things will go back to normal. But what if, again, we said, what if he davened 2 hours instead of an hour, or 3 hours and 4 hours? So those at that time, he becomes more and more a bigger part of the day, which is similar to the tzaddik. What if he davens 24 hours? Then in 24 hours, you never could really differentiate between him and the tzaddik. Right? Someone davens Shimon Aisenbach for never does Yisrael Shalom. So he's really davening all the time. So that's or at that time, it's not the word this is shalom, or it's a part after davening. It's not the detail of what part of davening. But if he's in a hard expression to Hashem throughout the entire day, so really you can never differentiate between him and the tzaddik at all. So is there a difference between the tzaddik and the Beinoni? We know that there is a time of the day that the Beinoni stops davening. He goes to do other things, even things which are, because he's a Beinoni, he never does anything wrong. He enters other portals in his connection to Hashem. Maybe Torah, maybe mitzvahs, milos chasadim. But then you cannot look at him, and you cannot define him as a tzaddik anymore, because then he has the Beinoni type of avodah. So then you get to differentiate between him and the tzaddik. But at the time of davening, you cannot. So we can understand the beautiful expression of the Gemara that halavai, a person would daven a whole day. The Gemara says, halavai shispaladim kolim kulit. If you think about it, why would the Gemara say that? We know that there are different connections that a person can have with Hashem. maybe because the world stands, and where our mandate is divided into three. Through prayer we connect to Hashem, through Torah we connect to Hashem, through mitzvahs we connect to Hashem. So why does the Gemara say halavai a person davens a whole day? The answer is, now we could see based on this explanation, it is rich and beautiful, because it's not the Gemara is ignoring the other connections to Yid has with Hashem, but the Gemara is saying that with the other connections when you have with Hashem, the fact that you're done with davening, you're done with that connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with this core level, there's this heart expression type of connection. So it's a yerida, it's a descent. You're doing what you have to do. You're a Beinoni, which never sins. And when we say never sins, again, we mentioned multiple times, quite a few times, that it's not only the negative, he's careful, the Beinoni is careful not to transgress maybe thought, speech, or action, but also the positive side. Everything, his whole day is aligned with Ratzon Hashem. He could be a businessman. It's not someone who's sitting in the Beis HaMedrash and learning Torah a whole day. No, we're dealing with a Beinoni, which is again the average. We call it Beinoni, literally means the intermediate, the average. He's a person which is a job, and because he has a responsibility, and he gets to bring parnasa. But everything he does within his 24 hours are aligned with what the Ratzon Hashem, which is Hashem's desire. But the Gemara is saying basically that the other services which you're involved with, you're not on the level of tzaddik. You don't experience that bonus as much as you experience by davening. Let a person daven a whole day. Realistically, it probably doesn't happen. Someone merited to daven a whole day at a person certain time in his life, it's wonderful. But on an average day, a person cannot daven a whole day. But the Mishnah should say it, halavai. Why would the Gemara rather would say it? Is because we understand the excitement of this bonus in the life of the Beinoni. Halavai shalis bal adam kolem kolem daven a whole day. So based on that, getting back to Rabbi, we said that prayer is unique, that the Yid is able to connect to Hashem on a heart level, as opposed to any other service or any other engagement in any other matter, even in the life of the Beinoni, which never crosses out of line in his mandate, again, which our mandate is that our garments, our thought, speech, and action remain clean. He never steps out of line. But the Maila of Tefillah, that it's heart. Any other thing else than Tefillah, anything else than prayer, doesn't have that virtue. Usually. Even a person learns Torah. Again, Torah, normally, if a person is not on a level or doesn't see or doesn't appreciate the godly reality which exists within Torah, he can learn Torah as a mitzvah. And a mitzvah is that we understand, and again, he pursues this scholarly dimension which exists within Torah. He knows it's a mitzvah. He's not just reading, he knows Chas v'Shalom, not just reading a book, an intellectual book. He knows it's Torah, but he performs it like a mitzvah. Then there's a higher level, a deeper level within Torah, that a person learns Torah with an avarabba, with a great love and a fervorous love to Hashem, which he finds within Torah, because he's so in tune to the reality that Torah is the Dvar Hashem. There's nothing else in every word of Torah, other than the fact that it is the Eibush. That Hashem is, the Gemara says, Anechi Hashem, the Eibush started, began, it says, Anechi Hashem Lekecha. The Gemara takes apart the word Anechi, and it says, Ano nafshi ksavis yahavis. You have Ano nafshi ksavis yahavis. It's a Aramaic wording. That Anechi is, the Eibush is saying, you know what Torah is? Ano, I, Hashem says, nafshi, my soul, my core, my essence, ksavis, I wrote it into Torah, yahavis, and I gave it over to you. So the person understands that's what the Eibush's soul is in every single part of Torah. That person understands when he learns a Vlad Gemara. Obviously, he has to understand what the Gemara says, the simple meaning of the Gemara. If someone's going to open a Gemara and says, "Wow, God, I love you. I know you're in this book, so I appreciate so much," and sitting next to the book which has so much of you. That's not, the person doesn't connect to God in that manner. Interestingly, that on one hand we know that it's not a matter of scholarship; it's a matter of finding God within Torah. In the same token, you want to find God within Torah, you really have to understand what the Gemara is saying, and the Gemara is dealing with interesting cases where we know the classic Mishnah, two people arguing, and this one says it's mine, and Reuven says like this, and Shimon says like this. In a sense, it seems to be things so trivial, if you may. But if that's what Torah is, we learn in the 5th chapter, the Torah has an expression that even this case will never come to be. There will never be a Reuven saying this, and there will be a Shimon saying this. But because the Eibush established that this is the halacha, when you engage in that halacha, you understand that piece of Gemara thoroughly, you're right away connecting with the greatest union with Hashem, and even more than mitzvahs, for that matter. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, it never gives the explanation, but it's all why Torah is even greater in the union with Hashem than other mitzvahs. But it's all based on the Gemara. Talmud Torah connected no greater mitzvah learning Torah. But in order to connect to that God which exists in the Torah, you have to really first understand what the Gemara is saying. And what Rashi says and Tesa says, or you learn any subject of Tanya and Halacha, you can't just say, oh God, you're in this book, I love you, and you start hugging the book. It's not, you never connect with God. It's like someone said, like for example, bread sustains a person. And someone's going to see a full cabinet closet and bread, he's going to jump into it, and he's going to think that's going to soothe his hunger or break his hunger. It's never going to happen. Take the bread, you have to eat it, and you have to make sure the bread is baked well, and then you consume it, and then it becomes part of your flesh and blood. Then you're going to live. Then you'll be able. Then it'll sustain you. You'll become full. You'll break your hunger. You can't just do things superficially and say that, well, if I eat bread, one slice of bread, it breaks my hunger. So if I dip myself into loaves of bread, for sure I should be able to break my hunger, because there's hundreds of pieces of bread around me. It's not going to happen. There's a Seder Mitzvah. You have to take and open the bag and take the piece of bread, eat it, digest it, and then it's gonna break your hunger. Then it's gonna make you feel good. Then it's going to soothe your hunger, right? Or soothe you. You won't be hungry. Same thing with Torah. You have to understand. I'm saying this parenthetically, but just because these times people get excited and they start. No, the idea of it is that you have to internalize the words, the understanding of every single pshat or halacha, anything you're learning. Once you understand that Gemara or that halacha, you understand thoroughly what the halacha is saying. You know that right now, what's behind the halacha? It's God. 100%. There's no part of the halacha as long. Once it became Torah. Maybe Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, Gemara, Talmud, everything, right? Once it becomes Torah, it is right away. We know that that's where Hashem nafshi ksavis yavas. I put my whole self here. So when a person's tuned to that reality, getting back to what he's saying here, a person's tuned to that reality. Every idea in Torah is ultimately God. And he knows there's no greater union in all of reality. As we mentioned, Rabbi alluded to this in the earlier chapters, that even greater than the experiences of all the neshamas in Gan Eden, maybe even the neshama Moshe, I mean the way he's in Gan Eden, not the way he was here, but the way he was in Gan Eden. I say to the exclusion the way he was here, because here Moshe Kibul Torah Messina, he was the one who learned Torah and gave Torah over. Precisely the Yid which learns Torah in this physical world, the union with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not only greater than mitzvahs, but greater than all of the experiences of all the neshamas ever had in Gan Eden, and Gan Atach, and Gan Ha'el, and any other level. Because God gave the Torah down here to these people. So where did He put His essence? He put His essence in the Torah the way it comes into this physical world. So the more we think about it, our appreciation or our approach to Torah becomes vastly different. Greatly different. Because the notion, the scholarly dimension of Torah kind of diminishes to the bigger picture. Wow, this is the way that we can connect to God in the greatest level possible. When I say greatest level possible, even greater than all the neshamas in Gan Eden. You think about the neshamas sitting thousands of years in Gan Eden. This is apparently the greatest pleasure they have. The pleasure they do have. They're definitely not fighting to go to recess, the middle of the yeshiva, middle of the lessons, right? They have great pleasure. But the core, the essence, where's the ano, where's the anechi, the essence of Hashem is in Torah over here. Just to repeat this, we mentioned a few times, this is based on what Al Rebbe said in the earlier chapters. You notice what does the Gemara say when we're dealing with the Shekhinah, which is apparent, or which the Nesham's experience in Gan Eden? It says Nene miziva Shekhinah. Right? If you look in the Lashon Pirkei or Pirkei Avos or in other places, Ziva Shekhinah means from the ray of the Shekhinah. It's not the Shekhinah itself. Shekhinah itself is down here in the Torah. We learn over here. In the mitzvah, Torah, mitzvah. So the more someone like Rabbi, which understood and perceived what Torah is, he learned Torah like a Beinoni which davens. His experience of learning Torah was like someone who davened. So because his experience with learning Torah was someone who davened, and dafka because he learned Torah 24 hours a day, literally every second which he had, which is ability, 24 hours or 22 hours. The idea of it is that every spare moment he learned Torah. And this was our question. This is the answer to the question becomes the answer. Our question is that he was someone who never stopped learning Torah. As we know, Torah is the most difficult mitzvah to keep in a complete manner. As we mentioned a number of times this as well. Every mitzvah you did it once. You don't have to shake the lulav and esrog more than once. You gain nothing by doing it twice. The same thing, someone puts on tefillin. So any mitzvah we do, this is a mitzvah. Right? Obviously, it's called mitzvah tmidi. It's loving Hashem never ceases because it's a heart mitzvah. There's no beginning, no end. But a mitzvah like learning Torah is practically a difficult mitzvah to do, because the mitzvah of learning Torah is that every moment a person has free, he is responsible to learn Torah. This is the chiyuv, the obligation to learn Torah. So we ask the question. We don't find anywhere else that the Torah takes a person and says, again, we found it by David and we found it by Rabbi. The Gemara says that the Malach HaMavis, which has no right of the person, when a person learning Torah, he had a problem with Rabbi because like pasik pu megirsa means he never stopped learning Torah. So this became the question: how can you say he's a Beinoni? The Alter Rebbe says, really, this is the answer. Because his learning Torah was in a way like a Beinoni which davens. His learning Torah was the experience of tefillah, of prayer. So because he learned Torah 24 hours a day, similar to the Beinoni who davens 24 hours a day. And we said when a Beinoni davens, you cannot differentiate him between him and the tzaddik. The Beinoni is similar to tzaddik. So Rabbi kind of within himself, he says, I'm learning Torah with a love of Hashem. It's like someone is davening. So who knows if I'm a tzaddik? Maybe I'm a Beinoni. That's why he said, Chaninah Beinoni. Is it clear? Yeah? So because he learned 24 hours, if he learned, let's say, 23 hours or 23 hours and 50 minutes or 59 minutes, then he stopped, like you're saying. You said the other day, you see a tzaddik when he's not learning Torah and davening. Because that's a crucial point of here. If Rabbi would have stopped learning Torah for any other reason, even obviously for a godly reason, because if it wasn't a godly reason just to stop learning Torah, then he's not even a Beinoni, right? Because a Rasha is someone who just transgresses the smallest bit. If someone has ability to learn, he doesn't learn, he's essentially called a Rasha. So even for any other reason, he wouldn't be so much involved in learning Torah, he would stop to do this or do that. Something which is again based on Shulchan Aruch. So a Beinoni he would be, but he would never consider himself the Beinoni. Then he would feel his continuous love. He was a tzaddik, so he would feel his truly continuous love to Hashem, similar to the way he learned Torah. Like we said, the definition of a tzaddik is really when he stops learning Torah and he still remains with that fervorous love to Hashem. So if he stopped and he would feel that love to Hashem, he wouldn't say Chaninah Beinoni. It's because he learned constantly 24 hours a day, so he felt like, and he learned like the experience of Rabbi's learning. It was like a Beinoni's davening. So because he learned the entire time, who says I'm a tzaddik? I'm a Beinoni. That's the word.
Because he was afraid, or you're afraid that when you stop, the nefesh habahamis is still not.
No, but the truth is that if he would stop, he would still have that. He was a tzaddik. The truth is, he was a tzaddik. He would still have that fervorous love to Hashem. Right. But if he would stop for any reason, then he would notice that the love to Hashem, the booming love he had to Hashem, like a Yid davens, he would have once he would stop learning. Right. So then he would never mistake himself as a Beinoni, because why do I have this love? Obviously because I'm a tzaddik. Right. A Beinoni, it ceases. That love comes down right away after davening. If he would learn, again, his learning was equated to someone's Beinoni's davening. If he would stop learning, again, even he would be involved with anything else, like we say established. Obviously, he would be involved in other things, but not learning Torah, which means not davening and not learning Torah. So then he would still feel, because he was truly a tzaddik, because we know he was a tzaddik, he would still feel his love, his fiery love to Hashem. So then he would never mistake himself like a Beinoni, because only a tzaddik has a fiery love to Hashem even after learning and davening. Right?
He calls himself a Beinoni.
But he calls himself, because he learned Torah the entire day, and when he learned Torah like a Beinoni who davens a whole day theoretically, so then he could never find the difference. He could never say that he was really a tzaddik, because maybe he's like a Beinoni. He was davening the entire day.
He never,
right?
He never was able to evaluate.
Exactly.
He never stopped doing it.
Never stopped learning. And his learning was like davening. So he says, Chaninah Beinoni. Exactly. Yeah. So this is, let's just, we want to go further, but let's just try to read it very quickly inside. I wonder if, we came to the two dots, so we don't have to repeat the text again. We'll start mamash where we're holding. V'hine midas ha'avazu. So v'hine midas ha'avazu. So do we have it before we go on? Do we have after the two dots? V'hine midas ha'avazu. It is very clear as well in the sheets, because I printed till the end of the chapter. So midas ha'avazu. It is
page. You don't have
There's no numbers.
Numbers would be really helpful.
Yeah, I know, but this is the way I printed. They don't have it. Maybe I should write it myself before I do the final copies.
You do have it, but it's hard to do. During prayer is mentioned above.
Right.
This are during prayer is mentioned above.
Yeah, that's the beginning. That's the page, and it's now this. Here now this fermental love attained by Beinanim. Okay, you have it. You have it there. Yes. Okay. So this midas ava, this midah of love, which is said by Beinanim, b'shas hatfilah, by the time of prayer, which comes like these gabras and nefesh alikis, comes to the strength of the nefesh alikis. The gabi madregas tzaddikim, compared to the level of tzaddikim, eidei Hashem be'emes lamite, which serve Hakadosh Baruch Hu be'emes lamite, a double expression of truth. Over here, ein b'chinas avazu nikreis b'shem avedus emes klal. It's not considered avodas emes, which means a true aveda of true aveda of truth. In other words, a true aveda klal at all. There's no such a thing. Interestingly, they say there's no such a thing as something which is a little bit truth. It's an expression also in the secular world. Also, it just makes sense. Nothing to do with Torah. No such a thing that it's a little bit true. Something which is a little bit true is not true at all. Simply, I sat and I slept for an hour. I slept for 58 minutes. It's just not true. It wasn't an hour. 59. I didn't. Even if it's 99% truth, it's not the truth. You can't say I slept for an hour, and I didn't. And there's no such thing a little bit truth. Anything with a little bit truth is an absolute lie. That's how it is. Think about it. It's just so. So if you think about the fact that there's this Beinani, even when he davens, he's equated to his service is equated to the service of to the level of the tzaddik. But because after davening he goes back to his state of a Beinani, there's no emes in his aveda. Now let's step back for a moment. It doesn't mean his aveda is not appreciated. Let's call it emes in the context that he brings emes and nachas to Hashem. Despite his challenges, he overcomes on a constant basis in thought and speech and action. That's an emes and nachas, right? But it's not, the avodah itself is not be'emes, right? So let's not get confused. The avodah, the service itself is not be'emes. Why is the service itself not be'emes? Because it has an interruption. Which means when he's a Beinani, you right away see the non-emes over here, because there's a part of him which is not completely submitted or nullified to Hashem. The fact that his nefesh b'ham, his animal soul, is intact, means to say that there's a behemoth within him. There's a part of him which is his animal soul, which is in a constant state of expression, which is his heart. Doesn't allow the signals to enter his thought, speech, and action. So he's never a rasha. But could you say that he's be'emes and Eved Hashem? Can't say be'emes, because it's part of him. So you can't say there's no chatzi emes, there's no half emes. The fact that he's perfect in thought, speech, and action, but there's the inner part of him which is the animal soul, which is in him, which is completely intact. There's no emes in his aveda, by definition. Now take the time when he davens, and everything about him is completely subjugated to Hashem, or in expression to Hashem, even at the core level, even the heart, right? The heart of it. But the fact that after davening, it goes back to square one, so that shows, again, that it's a half-truth, that you can't even define the time when he's davening as emes. Right? Just say a little bit of a Gemara, which is brought in Halacha and the Rambam as well. For example, it says that the waters of the Paraduma has to be called, Torah calls it Mayim Chaim, has to be live waters. So what's the definition of live waters? The Gemara says that anything which the stream of water it flows for 7 consecutive years. What if it's interruption of within 7 years? 6 years, 7 years, one of the two. I think it's 7. What is the 7 years? What is interruption of? What is it interrupts in the middle of 7 years? That same water cannot be used for paradum, because it's not mayim chaim, it's not live water. Why isn't it live water? So they're called mayim mechazvin. Mechazvin lashon kazav like sheker mechazv. It's based on lie. Why is it based on lie? Because it has an interruption. Even after 6 years and 12 months and 11 months, it stops. That shows that in the very beginning, retroactively, in the very beginning, it wasn't mayim chaim, wasn't live.
What stops the water?
It dries up. It dries up.
The mikveh is also known as mayim chayim.
Mikveh, not the regular mikveh, not necessarily. It's called, according to Torah, mayim chayim. No, a mikveh doesn't say the word mayim chayim.
Right.
It doesn't say mayim chayim, a mikveh. The mayim chayim is a paraduma. It says something about some other titles, but not by mikveh.
It's not mayim chayim because it's untouched by human hands.
No, mayim chayim is the flow.
Can't for sure say a mikveh. The mikveh is always touched by the person who touches it before. That's why it's not. And the actually the paraduma also.
The way the pipes are, because it's coming from the source.
Right, but that has to be because it has to be natural rainwater. It can't be with a keli. It can be accumulated with a keli, but the paraduma is with a keli. By the way, the paraduma is with a keli.
I've been a college teacher for many years,
Yeah.
and I remember when I learned originally, we talked about it as mayim chayim. So it's stuck in my
It could be, but it's not the same mayim chayim.
But it also confers tahara, and maybe that's the common denominator with paraduma.
Correct.
Yes, there's something there. There's something there. There's something there.
Too much of tahara.
Yeah, they both change the status of Tumah Tahara, but Paraduma has its own sets of dinim.
I understand.
Yeah. So one of the things it says, and it says used uniquely by Paraduma, that it has to be flowing for 7 years. And what if it stops in the middle? Apparently, even the first 6 years, it's flowing with the same gush and the same flow. Why can't you use it? Because before 7 years, it dries up. That's why the first 6 years it's not you can't use it. But the halacha is you can't. So it says because Data says mayim chayim, it has to be constant. Now the question is why 7 years? The answer is because everything associated with this the worldly cycle is number 7, the week and the 7 millennia and so on. So that's the number 7 because you can say the same thing. What if it does flow for 7 years and the 8th it stops? Why is that called true water or live water? It's also called mayim mechazim. No, 7 is the number which we're looking for. If it stops within 7, even when you took it, it appeared the same as the other flow of water which flowed for 7 years, with the same again flow and the same strength and so on. It's called mayim mechazim, and it's possible to borrow because Torah says mayim chai, which means this shows even that even when it is, it's really not. That's the code over here. That's the key over here. Even when it is, it's really not, because once you'll notice that it doesn't have the longevity in the context of this chayim, in the context of this paraduma, shows that even retroactively it really wasn't alive. Similarly, in the life of the Beitini. The Beitini, by definition, Avedasi is not an emes. Even when he davens, because that experiences comes to a stop. So again, retroactively in his davening, it's not called emes. Right? So Legabe, that's what he says. That tzaddik is all about emes. Everything about him at all times is completely devoted to Hashem, completely stands in submission to Hashem. Everything is not only thought, speech, and action. His entire essence, his core, is completely has he's overtly connected to Hashem at all times. So the government did think maybe the Shem Bemis let me to aim khnis avos unik b'shem avidas emes klar me achar as he continues shechalev zvar as achar tefillah after davening he continues uksiv, and it says fas emes tikin la'ad that the banks of truth will be established forever. But what is ad? Ad argia l'shein sheker. The pasuk says that the definition of ad is associated with an expression of sheker, of lie. So if it's the truth, it's emes. If it's the banks of truth, the pasuk uses the expression ad, and ad in another pasuk, or even and if it's the same pasuk continuation, but ad is defined as lashon sheker. So the truth is the truth. The banks of truth is not true. It's like a little half truth, doesn't exist. The banks of truth is sheker. So the Beinani apparently is a little at a loss over here.
Yeah.
Because he's telling him that even at the time, the fact that you can have a success, if someone has a successful davening, then the time of davening is similar to the tzaddik. But then nonetheless, we say his avodah is sheker. We can understand it, conceptually. We can understand it. But let's break it down to the Beinani. He's serving Hakadosh Baruch Hu. He can't be a tzaddik the way a tzaddik is because he wasn't given that schus to be a tzaddik as of yet. So, and you're telling him that his whole Aveda, which he's really trying his maximum, and he's succeeding in his davening, he's really has a hard expression and a relationship with Hashem at the time of davening. It's wonderful. Obviously, he probably feels bad that after davening, the Nefesh Bahamis kicks in, but he is determined and strong. 24 hours a day, he never goes out of line. It's wonderful, right? But he's still told that this is the banks of truth, and the banks of truth are associated with sheker. Comes Al Tereb and says, comforts the Beinani. in a moment, it's an interesting. Chassidim used to always say that there's one word over here that Alter Rebbe threw in over here precisely to the Beinani. We didn't use anywhere else. So let's just see it inside. Getting back to the text, in comparison to the overall level, the Beinim Nikris Avedas Tamo, it's called the complete Aveda be'emes lamite shalohem. In their emes lamite, each one in his levels of Beinanim. In other words, in comparison to the tzaddik, truly you're just the banks of truth, but within your team of Beinanim, it's called a complete Aveda. And Alter Rebbe uses the international lesson be'emes amite, the same term that Alter Rebbe used a few lines before by the tzaddik. In the world of the Beinani, there is truth because it is called Aveda Tam, a complete Aveda, each one according to his level in the levels of Beinanim.
So this is a reversal because now truth is becoming a relative term.
Yes, okay. True, exactly. But the Alter Rebbe gives a little bit flavor to it also. But one thing is, I, the Alter Rebbe say, call in the love to Hashem within their davening, also banks of truth. But in this case, Tikkun Lad, Alter Rebbe doesn't bring out the sheker over here, which ad is defined, but he turns to the Sfas Emes, the banks of truth over here, which exist in the life of the Beinani. Now, just pause for one moment and say, it's interesting, Chassidim always used to say that Alter Rebbe himself comforted the Beinani. This is the only time that Alter Rebbe speaks about himself, the Hareini, in the Likutei Amorim. The Alter Rebbe call in their love, in the expression of love, in their davening, Sfas Emes Tikkun Lad. He kind of gives a very personal touch to these struggling Beinanim. No other place does Alter Rebbe use the Lashon in Likutei Amorim, and never focuses about himself in the picture. So the Chassidim used to always say that in the end of the day, we're all, in the ballpark. I mean, we ought to be, but at least this is what is demanded from us, and we try to be the Beinim. And it could be, I wouldn't say depressing, but it could be disappointing a little bit here. Yid tries, and he's called Sheker in the end. So Alter Rebbe himself put the word Bahareini. I am comforting you that I am within, I'm there sympathizing with you, and I am calling the love in your davening also Sfas Emes Tikkun Lad. And so it was always a nechama, not only a comfort with the context Alter Rebbe sharing with the Beinani, but the Chassidim also feel that Alter Rebbe put himself in the agony, if you will, of the Beinani, that he says, Hareini, I'm there with you. And there was always a big comfort that the Alter Rebbe didn't just send a message, but he said, I'm there. You could send a message, or you could say, I'm holding your hand in your Aveda. So Alter Rebbe says, I'm there with you. So just to note, this was always, by Chassidim, was a very, people who live with the Tanya, this is a very, the Rebbe himself, which is all the way up there, he's a tzaddik, obviously, that he himself not only shares the information in the context of comfort, but he again says, I'm there with you. Just to point that out. And what's the svara? Why can we use emes? Because it's not just Alter Rebbe comforting, but he says, in the end of the day, you could daven a little longer, or you could daven even a little longer, because we have the ability to exercise davening whenever we want. Now, it doesn't mean a person stands in the corner and just says another prayer here, another prayer there. It's the idea that we can extend our davening, we can daven mincha, we daven ma'ariv. We have the ability throughout the day to pray to Hashem. Even the shachris, like I said, we could extend. There was a certain chassid that used to say that he was called, I forget what he was called, his shachris went to his mincha, and his mincha went to his shachris, and it's not that he didn't learn Torah because he sat and learned Torah. I forget they have in one of the Svarim, his schedule. He managed to learn Torah 10-12 hours a day non-stop anyway, he hardly ate, but the idea that he stretched his tefillas one to the other, from shachris to mincha, literally minute to minute, back to back, but he was all about davening. Because the Alter Rebbe is saying that in cheshbon, if you make a cheshbon, or if you look at this with a calculation over here of who the Beinani is, or what the virtue of prayer is, because you have the ability to re-arouse this love forever, whenever you want. So first, the Alter Rebbe says you can do it on a daily basis. So you really, the fact that it doesn't just come once a year, Yom Kippur, or any special and auspicious time where davening could be expressed, or davening, one could enter the world of davening, or engage in davening. No. it could happen every single day. And it could happen every single day doesn't only mean that the person davens every single day the way we can daven at times, grab the siddur, our mind is somewhere else, and even our periodically we do tune in, but that's not the davening that Alter Rebbe is saying, that the person is literally expressing a intimate relationship with Hashem. You're talking about somebody who could invest in this particular expression of davening on a daily basis. So when you can do something on a daily basis, and I added a little more. Well, Alter Rebbe says midayim b'yayim. I added even within the day itself, you could stretch the davening, or you could have mincha and stretch the mincha and daven ma'ariv and so on. But the Alter Rebbe is really saying that the fact that it comes every single day, we could really exercise a healthy davening through a proper preparation to every soul, each one according to his level. That itself says that if I can tune into it frequently, there could be a certain notion of emes in my Avodah. Had this experience of davening come once a week, or once in 2 weeks, or once in Yom Kippur, then the idea of emes would be much more distant. Even in the world of the Beinoni, doing what he has to do, but because by definition, the Beinoni is someone that a part of him is most of the times not doesn't stand in submission to Hashem. The only time that happens is by davening. So by the davening, we could not tune into davening on a frequent basis. Then this to emes would be very distant. But the fact that we can tune into this on a daily basis is pretty close, right? Every single day, a person could make the appropriate preparation, and exercise a healthy davening on a daily basis. So the Alter Rebbe says that's why I, in the world of the Beinonim, continue to call your Avodah Tama, complete Avodah be'emes la'amiti, with truth, because you can tap into it frequently. Because this is what Midas HaEmes is. Midas HaEmes is the Midah of Yaakov Avinu. Hanikra Briach HaTichein HaMavrich Min HaKotze LaKotze, which is called, there's a little tongue twister over here, but just to understand, who is Yaakov Avinu? Why is Yaakov Avinu Emes? Like it's a Titin Emes Yaakov. Yaakov is associated with Emes. Why? Because Avraham was Chesed, Yitzchak was Gvura, Yaakov was Tiferes. Tiferes has the Midah of Emes is because it's a combination of both. That's why Tiferes is beauty. When you have only one expression, chesed, it's like a garment. When it has two colors with woven together, and that is an expression of tiferes more than when you have only one color, because it's not in the same thing in ruchnis and spiritually in Avodas Hashem in character. When it's expression of chesed, so it's completely to the right. It doesn't, so it's negated very much from gvura. When you have Gvura solely, so you're completely negated from Chesed. So it's not Emes. The idea of Tiferes, which is Yaakov, which is number 3, is that it's a perfect combination and synthesis between Chesed and Gvura. That is what Tiferes is. Rachmin, compassion. Despite you're not worth it, I'll give it to you anyways. Right away, you're right away combining Chesed and Gvura. Chesed means I'm giving it to you. I'm not even looking at you. Gvura, I'm not. It's more stringency, judgment, right? What does compassion mean? Which is the midah of Rachmanis Tiferes. Despite you're not worth it, I'll give it to you anyways. That's already right there. You have din. You're not worth it, I'll give it to you anyways. That's already Chesed. It's a perfect combination of Chesed and Gvura. That's why it's emes, because it's not lacking of anything else. It's emes from all sides. That's why Yaakov is associated with emes. So it says Yaakov is the midah of emes, and he brings up the Briach HaTich in the middle pole and beam, which went from one side to the other. This is alluding to the beam which is in the Mishkan, which we know there's those who say that it entered the center of all 3 walls miraculously, even though it was a solid beam, but they pushed it in one. It automatically, miraculously turned on the western side and turned back on the southern side, and it came all around. So it says this is the midah of emes of Yaakov Avinu. Briach HaTichen HaMavrich Min HaKotze LaKotze, from one side to the other. So that briach, you look in the Mishkan, in the Vili of the Mishkan, there was the beams on top, and there was one, it says Min HaKotze LaKotze. So those opinions say it wasn't a miracle, they just put it each one, and it's considered as if it goes through all 3 walls. But one opinion says that it was a miracle the way it went in. It was a solid beam, but it turned from the east, from the northern side to the west, and back to the south, because this is what emes is. This is what Yaakov Avinu is, that there is no east, west, and north and south. It's one that it could capture everything. So this is again an expression of the Midah of Yaakov. This is, and again now he looks at it vertical. Mireim hamaylas, from the heights of heights, madregas and levels. That's safe kol dargin, to the lowest. Uvachol mayla madrega, in every level. Imavriach tech nukudo emtsois. It comes through the middle nukuda, the center point. Shu nukuda zebchinas midas emes shalom, which is its nukuda, its point of emes. Umidas emes inachal b'li mitzarim. Midas emes, the midah of emes, is a inheritance without any borders and without any boundaries. Ve'ein lo shir lamayla drema maylas. It has no limit to the highest of heights. And v'chol maylas madrega shalamata heim be'ein areich ke'ayin. I'm sorry, ke'ayin l'gav maylas madrega shamayla mehen. That all its levels, everything lower than the emes is in a higher level, is insignificant. L'gav the emes is in a higher level. So again, it's a little bit of a tongue twister, but let's just say what Al Rebbe is really saying over here. That in one hand we established that the midah of emes is a midah of emes has to be true all the way, because if it's half true, it's really not true. In the other hand, there is the fact that emes crosses from one end to the other. So every point, wherever it crosses, there's the center midah of emes in the point where it's crossing. And if we look at it vertically, for example, you see the emes of Atzilus, of a Gan Eden Ha'elyon, a supreme level in Gan Eden. There's the emes there. In comparison to the emes in Gan Eden HaTacht, in the inferior level Gan Eden, there is no emes in comparison to the emes in the higher level. Because that's the word of emes. Wherever it is, it demonstrates the maximum emes of the level to which it's relating to, and if you compare it to the higher level, because that's the maximum emes in the way it is in the higher level, by definition the lower level is not true anymore. But because it's emes, and emes permeates every single level with its potency of emes, so wherever you stop, that's where the emes is. So to say that it's an absolute, that all levels of emes are equal, you can't say it also. For this very reason, because emes is something which draws from the highest levels to the lowest, in every area of its emes, it's the maximum emes of that level that itself says that in comparison to the higher level, in other words, where the emes expresses itself at the higher level, looking down, the lower level is insignificant to it. But you cannot completely ignore the emes on the lower level. And that's what he's saying. Now, just to say this brackets, he says, Ki Yadu, we'll finish the page, Yadu, the Chain, it's known in those who know, Chachma Nistara, the hidden secrets, the head and the brain of a lower level, even though that's a head and a brain, are the level of a heel, the ragle and feet, madreges alyenis mehen, of a higher level. In other words, if you talk about two levels, for example, we said the Gan Eden HaTacht and Gan Eden Ha'elyon, which this is not associated with Tanya or Chassidus. We know that there's different levels in Gan Eden. The highest level of Gan Eden HaTacht is lower than the lowest level of Gan Eden Ha'elyon. So he says the brain, or the intellect, which in the structure of man is the highest, feet and the heel are the lowest. So when you're dealing with something which is a totally higher level, the brain and the head of the lower level is considered the heel and the feet in comparison to the higher level. Like the feet of the highest. Now, who's the highest? The highest of the highest, according to Allah, is the highest level of Malachim, or rather Srafim. I forget I think the highest of the highest, or in this context, it said the highest is a certain special Malachim. So their raglayim, their feet, which means that doesn't mean physical feet, but the lowest level is Kineged Kulam, corresponds to anything which is lower than it. So this is again in the brackets. But getting back to what we're saying over here in the context of the tzaddik and the beinani. If midas ha'emes is emes in mina kotza la kotza, from one end to the other, so what is in the package of Avodas Hashem? There is, for example, the tzaddik and the beinani. We can't consider the Rasha because the Rasha is really not, maybe has a certain emes within himself very deep. The pintel yid within every yid is the emes of the yid, but it doesn't come in a state of manifestation. So let's look at the beinani. Well, again, maybe we consider the Rasha also. We said the other day tzibur, right? The tzibur is the tzaddik, bein tzaddikim, beinanim, and Rishayim, right? And you have a minyan tzibur tzaddik meaning. But let's look at the tzaddik and the meaning because they both stand in a complete desire to serve Hashem to the maximum. And because midas ha'emes, it's so true that there's no hefsek, there's no interruption. Something which isn't true, in other words, a different twist, a different approach to the midas ha'emes. Something which isn't true, so it has an interruption. Like you think about Avraham was not called emes because it's chesed. It doesn't reach gvura. Yitzchak was true in gvura, but it wasn't absolute truth because it stopped by gvura. It wasn't chesed. The reason why Yaakov is called chesed because he has a combination. He's able to combine the two. In other words, it never stops. You can't say it's emes till here and it stops. No, because it's emes, it has chesed and gvura. So there's no interruption to any expression. Maybe chesed, maybe gvura. Now you're going to say the emes of gvura is the same as the emes of chesed? No, it's not. This is emes and gvura. It's not emes and chesed. In the world of Yaakov, it's min hakotza. He brings it a few times. Min hakotza el hakotza, from one extreme to the other. As we look at the package of Hashem tzaddikim and beinanim, emes, it's emes all the way through, from tzaddikim all the way to beinanim. But because it's emes in every nukud, in every point where it would stop, or you want to stop it and focus and say this is the emes till the end. So when you look at emes till the end of the tzaddik, you could, at that point you're looking from the window of the tzaddik, the madreg of beinanim is sheker. But because emes really comes from all the way, permeates all the way through every single level. Again, that is what Yaakov Avinu is. It's a combination of all levels, and that's part of his emes. So there's an akudim size. You can stop and focus on the emes of the Beinani, and that's what Alter Rebbe is doing. Because obviously, in comparison to the tzaddik, like he says, the highest, the lower level is considered the heel of the highest level. And the same thing over here. On one hand, Alter Rebbe clearly calls the avodah of the Beinani completely sheker. And we can understand why. But because we're dealing with the mid of emes, and the mid of emes comes through every single darga, and that's what the emes is all about. So Alter Rebbe says, I could still call in the world the Beinani, if I want to just focus on the Beinani, just look at the Beinani, and say that I could find the nukud of emes within him. And again, how Alter Rebbe unfolds and relates to it. He says, because I could reinvigorate this notion of avas Hashem, again, not only obeying Hashem with thought, speech, and action, but love to Hashem. I could do it on a daily basis, so I could find the emes of the world of the Beinani and continue to call it emes. And again, interestingly, you learn the Tanya time and again. Every time something new comes, I never noticed Alter Rebbe uses the same, and Alter Rebbe we mentioned a number of times. There was very precise in his expression. A moment ago, the Rabbi the tzaddik, he uses the expression emes la'amitay, and not stam emes la'amitay. Here, when he's focusing on the emes of the Beinani, comforting the Beinani, but not just stam comforting, but it's showing him that he could really reconnect and rearouse that emes within him, or that connection on a love level, a level of a heart level to Hashem. He uses the exact same expression, emes lamite, but this is emes lamite as we focus on the Beinani.
Right.
Have a great night.